the purposes of this video, actors may not always be shown wearing personal protective equipment. Products are shown for demonstration purposes only. The American Heart Association does not endorse or recommend any specific manufacturer or product.
So Janie tells me she's not playing soccer next year?
I think she's more interested in band, although Kyle tells me she's also in math.
Stop! Did you see that? That man just collapsed on the school lawn.
Yeah, and he's not getting up.
Wow, this doesn't look good.
I hope John knows what to do, because I sure don't.
Okay, remembering the first aid course at work. I need to make sure the scene is safe.
That could be you, helpless, on the ground. Or you could be the rescuer who comes to the person's aid. People can suddenly become ill or injured, regardless of where they live or work. But you can make a difference. Even save someone's life, if you learn to recognize and respond to common emergencies. Hello, and welcome to the American Heart Association's Heart Saver First Aid course. In this course, you'll learn the basics of first aid, the most common life-threatening emergencies, how to recognize them, how to call for help, and how to perform life-saving skills. This course will help you learn in several ways. Your student workbook covers all the material and includes quick reference guides. And this video will give you facts and show you important skills. However, not all topics are covered in the video, so it's important to read your workbook and keep it close by. If you complete all the course requirements and demonstrate the skills correctly, you will receive a course completion card. Studies show that you need to review this information and practice the skills frequently in order to maintain your first aid skills. Now let's get back to the scene and see how training in first aid can help you save someone's life.
Can you hear me? Are you okay? Are you okay? Janice, phone 911 and stay on the line so you can answer the emergency dispatcher's questions, okay?
Okay, got it. There's a gentleman on the ground who's unresponsive.
He's breathing normally, so he doesn't need CPR.
We're at Mitchell School on the corner of Elm and Cherry Street. 3535 Cherry Street.
What can I do?
I'm on the phone with the 911 dispatcher. Do you have a first aid kit and an AED?
Yeah.
Hurry and go get those.
What about other problems? Was he injured? I don't see any bleeding, broken bones, or bites. Nothing at all.
What about medical information jewelry?
Let me see. Oh, wait, here's something. He's wearing a necklace. He has diabetes.
We just discovered a medical necklace. He has diabetes. Okay, the paramedics are on their way. They're just a couple of blocks away. The dispatcher says to stay with him until they arrive. I'm gonna go meet them.
You just witnessed someone like you putting first aid training into action. It's more than scratches, scrapes, and skinned knees. First aid is the immediate care that you give a person with an illness or injury before more advanced training arrives and takes over. First aid can be initiated by anyone in any situation. It may help someone recover more completely or more quickly, and it could mean the difference between life and death. Most of the time, you'll give first aid for minor illnesses or injuries, but you may also give first aid for something that could become life-threatening, such as providing aid for a heart attack, bandaging for severe bleeding, or giving epinephrine for a severe allergic reaction. Today, you'll get to practice first aid skills, which will help you remember what to do in a real emergency. Let's define some terms you'll hear throughout the course. Responsive refers to someone who moves, speaks, blinks, or otherwise reacts when you tap him and ask him if he's okay. Unresponsive refers to someone who does not move, speak, blink, or otherwise react. As part of first aid basics, your role as a first aid rescuer is to recognize that an emergency exists. Make sure the scene is safe for you and the ill or injured person. Phone 911 and provide care until someone with more advanced training arrives and takes over. You become an important part of Emergency Medical Services, or EMS. EMS is a network of emergency responders that you activate by calling 911. Another first aid basic that applies to almost all emergencies is to ask if you may help. Anyone has the right to refuse you. When you come upon an ill or injured person and the person responds, introduce yourself as a first aid provider before you touch the person. Then, ask if you may help. If the person agrees, give first aid. If the person refuses, phone 911 and stay with him until help arrives. If the person is confused or can't answer, assume the person wants help. Also, it's important to know that first aid kits should contain the supplies you'll need in most common emergencies. Your student workbook contains a list of what is usually kept in a kit. Your kit may be different, however, so please check the first aid kit against your list to see if there are additional items you need to add. Be sure to restock it after any emergency. By taking this first aid course, you are benefiting yourself as a rescuer and the ill or injured person. Initially, you may have thoughts like Janice when she and John first came upon the landscaper near the school.
Wow, this doesn't look good.
I hope John knows what to do, because I sure don't.
Janice isn't alone in her hesitancy to act. You may be worried about doing the right thing or worried that someone else could provide better care, or even the sight of the injury itself might be overwhelming. Taking the American Heart Association's Heart Saver First Aid course increases your confidence and ability to respond in emergency situations. Just like John, you'll be more likely to help if a family member, coworker, friend, or even someone you don't know becomes ill or injured. And if you have questions regarding whether or not it's legal to provide someone first aid, all states have Good Samaritan laws. These laws protect anyone who provides first aid. They differ from state to state, so be sure to check the laws in your area. When something like this happens, what do you do? In a matter of seconds, you need to act. But there are several things to consider as you start to provide first aid. First, make sure the scene is safe. Be aware of any danger for you, the ill or injured person, and anyone else nearby. This is an important step. Do it every time you are providing help. Continue to assess the scene while you provide first aid to be aware of anything that might change and make it unsafe. You can't help anyone if you're injured yourself. When you look around, ask yourself these questions. Is there danger for you or the ill or injured person? Move an injured person only if he is in danger or if you need to move him to safely provide first aid or CPR. Are others around to help? If so, have someone phone 911. If no one else is near, phone for help yourself. Who is ill or injured? Can you tell how many people are hurt and what happened? Where are you? You'll need to tell others how to get to you, in particular the 911 dispatcher. If there are other bystanders at the scene, send one of them to meet the paramedics and lead them to the scene. As you assess the need for first aid, it's important to know when and how to phone for help. Phoning 911 activates a network of responders through EMS. As a general rule, you should phone 911 and ask for help whenever someone is seriously ill or injured and you're not sure what to do in an emergency. Here are some examples. The person doesn't respond to voice or touch, has chest discomfort signaling possible heart attack, has signs of stroke, has a problem breathing, has a severe injury or burn, has severe bleeding, has a seizure, suddenly can't move a part of the body, has received an electric shock, or has been exposed to poison. You will learn more about the signs and first aid actions for these medical and injury emergencies later in the course. But when an emergency happens, what do you do if you're alone? For example, if John had been by himself when he found the landscaper in front of the school, he should do the following.
Are you okay?
Shout for help. If no one answers and the person needs immediate care and you have a cell phone, phone 911 and put the phone on speaker mode. The emergency dispatcher could provide further instruction and tell you how to give first aid, provide CPR, and use an AED.
you okay? Are you okay? Help! Help! I need some help!
911, what's your emergency?
There's a man down on the school lawn. I'm checking his breathing. He's breathing normally, but unresponsive.
What's your address?
I'm at the Mitchell School, near the corners of Elm and Cherry Streets. 35 Cherry Street.
Okay, Mitchell School, near the corner of Elm and Cherry Streets. 3535 Cherry Street. I've dispatched paramedics, so they're on the way. Is he on a flat surface?
Yes, he's on the lawn.
Does he have any injuries? Any medical information, jewelry on?
I'm checking.
Or, if you're with others during an emergency, then you would do as John and Janice did. They worked together. John started assessing the need for first aid while Janice phoned 911. When you're on the phone with the dispatcher, don't hang up until the dispatcher tells you to. Answering all the dispatcher's questions won't delay the arrival of help. And be aware of your surroundings. Knowing the address of your location will help emergency responders reach you more quickly. It's also important for you to know how to phone for help from your location. Do you know how to activate the emergency response number in your workplace? For example, is it necessary to dial 9 for an outside line? Or is there an internal number to phone that will notify responders that are on site? For the purpose of this course, we will say phone 911 as the emergency response number. The video will now pause for you to write down the emergency response number for your location in your student workbook. As you assess the scene for safety, there are universal precautions you should take. These precautions are called universal because you should treat all blood and other body fluids as if they contain germs that can cause disease. Your first aid kit includes personal protective equipment, or PPE, such as eye protection and non-latex gloves. While you are giving first aid, these help keep you safe from blood and body fluids, such as saliva and urine. First aid kits may contain a mask for giving breaths in case you need to provide CPR. And because some people are allergic to latex or have developed sensitivity to latex that can cause serious reactions, you should use non-latex gloves if at all possible. You should always wear personal protective equipment whenever possible. However, if the person's blood does make contact with your skin or splashes in your eyes or mouth, take these steps. Remove your gloves if you are wearing them. Immediately wash your hands and rinse the contact area with soap and lots of water for 20 seconds. Rinse your eyes, your nose, or the inside of your mouth with plenty of water if body fluid splattered in any of these areas. And report to a healthcare provider as soon as possible. Because of the risk of infection, using protective gloves and taking them off correctly are important steps when it comes to your safety and the safety of others. Let's watch more closely how to remove protective gloves, and then you'll get a chance to practice. First, grip one glove on the outside near the cuff and peel it down until it comes off inside out. Cup it with your other gloved hand. Next, place 2 fingers of your bare hand inside the cuff of the glove that is still on your other hand. Peel that glove off so that it comes off inside out with the first glove inside it. If blood or blood-containing material is on the gloves, dispose of the gloves properly. Put them in a biohazard waste bag. If you do not have a biohazard waste bag, put the gloves in a plastic bag that can be sealed before you dispose of it. Always dispose of protective gloves properly so that anyone else who comes into contact with the waste bag does not get exposed to blood or body fluids. You should always wash your hands after removing gloves, just in case some blood or body fluids came in contact with your hands. To wash your hands properly, wet them with clean running water, warm if available, and apply soap. Rub your hands together and scrub all over for at least 20 seconds. Then, rinse your hands with lots of running water. Dry your hands using a paper towel or air dryer. If possible, use your paper towel to turn off the faucet. If you can't wash your hands right away, use waterless hand sanitizer. Rub your hands together so the sanitizer covers the tops and bottoms of both hands and all fingers. Then let the sanitizer air dry. Then as soon as you can, wash your hands with soap and water. Washing your hands well is one of the most important protections you have against infection. Now, as we go through the course today, you're going to have a chance to practice skills that would require you to wear gloves. Instead of actually using gloves for every practice, just say out loud, "I'm putting on gloves," as you begin. This way, you won't have to actually wear gloves every time. Watch this demonstration one more time, and then you'll get a chance to practice. Since you may not have a biohazard waste bag, you can just say, "I will now dispose of the protective gloves properly." After practice, your instructor will test you. First, grip one glove on the outside near the cuff and peel it down until it comes off inside out. Cup it with your other gloved hand. Next, place 2 fingers of your bare hand inside the cuff of the glove that is still on your other hand. Peel that glove off so that it comes off inside out with the first glove inside it. And say, "I will now dispose of the gloves properly and will wash my hands with soap and water." Now, it's your turn to practice taking off protective gloves correctly. After practice, your instructor will test you. We've talked about assessing the scene to be sure it's safe and taking precautions such as wearing personal protective equipment. Next, you must assess the ill or injured person to find out what the problem is before you give first aid. Let's look at the steps more closely. First, make sure the scene is safe. As you approach, look for what could be causing the problem. Next, check to see if the person responds. Approach the person, tap him, and shout, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" If the person doesn't respond, and you are alone and have a cell phone, phone 911 and put your phone on speaker mode. Otherwise, send someone else to phone 911 and get the first aid kit and the AED. Check to see if the person is breathing. If the person isn't breathing normally or is only gasping, begin CPR. If the person is responsive, ask what the problem is. A person may only be able to move, moan, or groan when you tap him and shout. If so, phone or send someone to phone 911 and get the first aid kit and AED. If the person is breathing and doesn't need immediate first aid, look for any obvious signs of injury, such as bleeding, broken bones, burns, or bites. Finally, look for any medical information jewelry. This tells you if the person has a serious medical condition. Finding the problem is a skill you'll be tested on, so watch this demonstration, and afterwards, you'll get a chance to practice. First, make sure the scene is safe.
The scene is safe. I'm now putting on gloves.
Next, tap the ill or injured person's shoulder and shout to check for a response.
"Sir, are you okay? Are you okay?"
If the person does not respond, phone or send someone to phone 911 and get the first aid kit and AED.
Phone 911 and get a first aid kit and AED.
If you are alone and the person does not respond, phone 911 on your cell phone and put it on speaker mode to follow instructions from the dispatcher. Check to see if the ill or injured person is not breathing normally or is only gasping.
I'm checking his breathing. He's breathing normally. I'm checking for obvious signs of injury.
Look for any obvious signs of injury, such as bleeding, broken bones, burns, or bites. You'll learn about these soon.
I'm checking for medical information jewelry.
Also, look for any type of medical information jewelry. The video will now pause to let you practice finding the problem, and afterwards, you'll be tested on this skill. In providing first aid, you might wonder, Should you move an ill or injured person? Generally, no. This is especially important if you suspect that the person may have a pelvic or spine injury. However, there are times when the person should be moved. If the area is unsafe for you or the ill or injured person, move to a safe location. If you do need to move someone, here's one way to do it. Drag the person by his clothes. Place your hands on the person's shoulders, grab his clothes, and pull him to safety. And if a person is unresponsive in breathing, an option would be to roll the person onto his side. By rolling the person onto his side, you may help keep his airway open. As we wrap up first aid basics, it's important for you to know that you may learn private things about the person you are helping. Keep private information private. Share information about an ill or injured person only with emergency responders when they take over. In summary, you've learned the priorities, roles, and responsibilities of the first aid rescuer. Your role is to recognize that an emergency exists, make sure the scene is safe for you and the ill or injured person, phone 911, and provide care until someone with more advanced training arrives and takes over. You've learned the key steps in first aid, which include knowing where and when to get the first aid kit. Part of your first aid training is to know when to phone your emergency response number or 911. When you do so, you activate EMS, Emergency Medical Services, a network of emergency responders. Part of giving first aid is also taking precautions to protect you and the ill or injured person. You learned about wearing personal protective equipment and practiced the skill of removing protective gloves to protect you from blood and other body fluids. And you also learned and demonstrated the skill of finding the problem. Following the steps to find the problem helps you determine how to give first aid. For more information on the topics covered in First Aid Basics, refer to your student workbook. Next, we will take a look at medical emergencies. But first, the video will pause so that your instructor can ask you some review questions to answer as a group.